Good day, Nigerians, wherever you are in the world. My name is Adewale Olashukwan. We're happy to be back with you here on the show this morning. It's the first day in the month of April 2024, and it's still the season of celebration, the Easter celebration. We're happy. I hope you're having a good time at home with your family and loved ones. The program is Headline Reviews, where we take you through all select headlines from our national dailies. Good morning and welcome to the program. Good morning, Chinatu.
Hello, Adewale. It's Easter Monday.
It is.
What a day to be alive.
What a day indeed to be alive, and the celebration has been apt. We've had comment from different parts of the world, and the message has been about peace, has been about the essence of family, the essence of
unity.
Unity, exactly. It's been wonderful all around.
And it's very important, if you ask me, because at this point in time, we need to all come together and see that the world can get better, because I understand that your effort, my effort, everybody's collective effort make things better. So that's the Easter message. Let's all unite and get things working.
Exactly. Unite. It seems like the message for the Women's Month: Unite, Invest. But moving on to the newspaper this morning, we're starting with the Punch newspaper. Pope seeks peace in Africa and urges Russia-Ukraine prisoners exchange. Pope Francis, in his Easter message on Sunday, prayed for peace on the African continent and sought the exchange of prisoners between Russia and Ukraine in a bid to put an end to the war. The Pope urged the world to resist the logic of weapons in his Easter message at the Vatican, easing growing health fears as he greeted thousands of Catholics. So, of course, we're still in the month of celebration of the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ, and a lot of pastors, even world leaders, have all called for peace and unity, just like you mentioned at the introduction. But now we have the Pope Francis talking about Africa. Indeed, a lot of conflicts are happening around the world, particularly in Africa. We know about the war in Sudan. We know about the crisis in Tigray in Ethiopia, and a lot of other African countries that are going through one problem or another. And the Pope is urging that peace has to prevail. We need to put an end to the logic of weapons. We need to embrace dialogue and see how we can communicate and live in a harmonious environment. But also the Pope mentioned that there should be prisoners exchanged between Russia and Ukraine. The Russia-Ukraine war has gone for more than 2 years, and this seems unending. A lot of different parties to the conflicts, the Russia and Ukraine, backed by the Western powers, have refused negotiation and wants to make sure that the outcome of the war is decided on the victory on the battlefield. But Pope is against that. He's asking that prisoners exchange should be made, because when we have communication in this regard, we can then see how we can move reconciliatory effort and even ending the war in negotiation going forward. So I think this is a call to action for both parties involved and a step in the right direction, because when we have two warring parties talk, then we can be rest assured that in future perhaps something forthcoming could happen.
Yeah, honestly, Wale, nobody loves war. I don't think anybody wakes up and wants to have war. But now that we see Kyiv and Moscow still warring at this point in time, the Pope message is then timely. And I'd like if the two presidents, Putin and Zelensky, come together and see that the prisoner exchange happens. Because when prisoners are being exchanged, it just means that there's now negotiation that's going to be happening. And you now know that peace is about to happen. But that's a victor. Will that even happen?
Yes, I mean, there have been prisoners exchanged over the last 2 years when the war started in earnest in February 2 years ago. And we've had some facilitated by Turkey. We've had some facilitated by some European countries and even some facilitated by Saudi Arabia. So we've had this prisoners exchange in different form or another. But the essence of this message, I think, from the Pope is to make sure that when this kind of conversation are allowed to happen, then perhaps peace could prevail in the next few years. Because what we're seeing now is that everybody's still at the height of the conflict. We're looking about how to buy weapons from different countries, how to produce more weapons. And we've had tens of thousands of people die, hundreds of thousands of casualties, both dead and wounded in the last 2 years. These lives of precious people, both civilians and military people alike. So if we look at this, is it really worth it, the fight that we've been having it go on for more than 2 years? So I think the conversation, of course, people would say Ukraine alone cannot make the decision because Ukraine is being funded and being supplied weapons by the Western powers. So the conversation has to cut across all the parties involved in the conflict, and I think that's a good way to look at it. But we must not forget Africa itself, that there are a lot of conflicts happening in Africa that are not making it to the headlines. There's a popular quote by Chinua Achebe. He says, until the lions have a historian, the history of the hunt will always glorify the hunter. The stories of the West will always matter because they have people tell their stories to the wider audience. So if we have television stations or people in Africa telling our stories differently, perhaps we'll have more Security Council resolutions for Africa, and we'll have more United Nations General Assembly, have discussions to make sure that Africa is prioritized in our own needs and to solve our own problems as they arise.
You've spoken so well, Wale. I just wish that Putin and Zelensky are listening to you right now.
Well, they do not share their plans with us. The Kremlin do not share their plans with us, but we hope for peace in Ukraine and in Russia too.
Absolutely. Away from Ukraine and Russia, let's go to the Vanguard, where the NDLEA has intercepted Qatar-bound illicit drugs concealed in African salad. Operatives of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, in conjunction with the operatives of the Department of State Services, DSS, have detained a 35-year-old lady, Chidinma Agbazwe, after she was caught attempting to export 20 parcels of cannabis sativa weighing 10.70 kilograms concealed in African salad, popularly called abacha, and dried vegetables to Doha in Qatar through the Murtala Mohammed International Airport, Ikeja, Lagos State. This comes as the agency's operative reportedly rejected a 5 million naira bribe from another suspect in Lagos State. The spokesperson for the NDLEA, Femi Babafemi, revealed the development in a statement yesterday while detailing arrests and recoveries made by the agency over the past week. Wow. You know, every time you read some news or you just hear some things, you just wonder, are we going forward? Is there a decline in our country? The matter of NDLEA, we keep hearing it over and over again. I mean, if there's no interception this week in Lagos, then there's another one the other week. And what beats my imagination is the fact that these are young people, really young people. And to finish the whole case now, this is a woman, a young woman of 35. Why is a young woman involved in drug trafficking? And when you think about the disadvantages or the problems or the challenges that drug trafficking poses on the individual, on the economy of the country, you wonder why people get involved in this. I mean, they ignore all the risks involved and then still go ahead. This woman is 35. She has a life ahead of her. I'm sure she has a family. Even if she doesn't have a family, she has her future. But she's putting her life on the line to, transport drugs from Nigeria to Qatar. And I'm just wondering what would her fate would have been if she was able to transfer this thing from Nigeria to Qatar. There's no death sentence in Nigeria, but we know how strict other countries are when it comes to issues of illicit drugs, right? We know how these things are, and this is happening.
Exactly, and just to start from where you stop, if she was able to transport this from Nigeria to Qatar, we understand that these Arabian countries, the Gulf countries, have stringent punishments for people, even as high as capital punishments, which would require you to be killed for people that are trafficking drugs into their country. But coming back to the issue of itself, and even for the case of in Nigeria, so to say, looking at someone as young as a 35-year-old woman, and you mentioned that why would a woman do such a thing? I mean, women aren't angels; they are human, just like anybody, capable of doing things that men are doing, capable of being
you know what
wicked,
they say,
capable
what
of being.
A man can do.
A woman can do better, but this is not so. In some ways,
I understand what you're saying, Wale. I mean, this is not in any way to make her feel better. Nobody should be guilty of this kind of crime.
Nobody should do this. But I'm looking at how this is going to protect us in the international community. If we are known for a country that we already have a baggage to our name when it comes to internet fraud, and are we going to create this circle adding more labels to ourselves? So I think it's a thing that begs for, it's a question that begs for a lot of answers. And I think investigation has to be done in the right way to understand that who are the people that she's going to sell this to? Who are the people that gave this to her? Where did she get them from? because I don't think it's just enough to
Exactly.
just apprehend her and take her to the court. And then, of course, I understand the security agencies will do due diligence to question her in the right way, to understand where she's taking this from, how has she been able to move it from wherever she was coming down to the airport. I think all of that has to be taken care of. But also, I think we also need to look at the state of our economy in Nigeria. Would people be
gainfully
employed? But even if we have, because some people would still argue, if we have jobs for everybody in Nigeria, there will still be some people that will still indulge in this kind of... it would be limited. It would be limited, but the eradication of it itself is something that I don't think it's possible to achieve in Nigeria. But in as much as we can prosecute this kind of cases and make sure that other people that are seeing it would understand that you can go through this process and come out freely and your life wouldn't change forever. So I think her case would serve an example for other people in the country.
Yeah, I hope it serves, because you see, the truth is, while a lot of people see drug trafficking as a very lucrative business, and you made mention of how the economy is. And so somebody would tell you, do you know how much I can make just by pushing drugs? And so it's a lucrative business, right? But where is the market? Why are people still finding the market? I believe that if all hands on deck, we will not have this situation. There's certainly a network of people who do all of this job. So yes, this woman has been apprehended now. So I am very sure that she has links. So this is just me saying the security agency, NDLEA, they've done a good work by, arresting her. Then it shouldn't end there. Let the whole network be brought to book. That's what we want.
Exactly. Moving on to the next story from the nation's newspaper. 3 presidential jets proposed for sale. 3 jets in the presidential air fleet are to be sold off. This is part of the cost-saving measures being adopted by the Tinubu administration. There are 10 aircraft in the fleet, 6 jets and 4 helicopters, which will be cut to 7 if the planned action sailed through. During the administration of the President Muhammadu Buhari, the plan to sell 2 planes in the fleet did not materialize. In October 2016, a Dassault Falcon FX executive jet and a Beechcraft Hawker 4000 business jet were put up for sale. I think one must acknowledge what President Bola Tinubu has been doing over the last few months. It's a very laudable action. He's taken different action. We've talked about the Oronsaye report, making sure that has been implemented. We talked about the ministers that have been told that you cannot go for trips abroad. All trips must be within the country. And if you have to go abroad, you have to fund it yourself. And now we're seeing part of the presidential fleet being sold. We have 10. How many is the president going in? How many is the president going in? And how often does the president even travel around the country? So we have this. These are not just staying in the places that they are maintained. They have the money for maintenance. They have the money for parking. Because wherever they stay, they have to pay over every day at the Muritala International Airport. They're being paid every day for staying there overnight. So I think we need to cut down the cost of governance. And I think they're touching different aspects of the government expenditure as well, to look at different places where we can cut back cost of governance and make sure that we prioritize the people's needs, which should in fact be the priority for any government or any country in the world. So I think this is a step in the right direction, and I hope that this is not just has been reported at the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari. We had the news that time that 2 out of the fleet was going to be sold and nothing happened, and we still have 10 till now. If you can even cut down to 5.
3.
We don't
3.
We don't need much. You say 3. So
we don't need all of that, honestly. We don't need all of that. The president has one. So truthfully, like you said, it's a laudable decision by the president. And seeing that it's coming from the presidency, it makes it even more interesting. It just shows Nigerians that the president is seeing the economic challenges currently facing the country, and he's making steps to ensure that everything is being adjusted. And so we see that it's not just the fuel subsidy. We are seeing it touching everywhere, every aspect of the government. And so it's laudable. Like you've mentioned, we just do not want to see it on paper. We want to see the action being carried out. We want to ensure that, okay, reduces to 8 and subsequently 3.
Yeah, just like you mentioned, we've seen different countries look for ways to cut down cost of governance. And we cannot compare ourselves. When Nigerians want to speak, do President of America not have many? We're not America.
Not.
America can decide to spend trillions of dollars on whatever they want to do. We cannot afford that. So I think this is a step in the right direction.
And you know what I'll also appreciate? That there's continuity. So it doesn't just end with this administration. The next administration comes and still runs with that. That's what we want. Saving costs makes everybody feel better.
Exactly.
At the end of the day. Away from there, we now move to this day where the federal government has adopted a virtual means of evacuation of crude oil that involved the utilization of barges and trucks for the transportation of crude from the points of production to injection storage points for eventual transportation to export terminals. It said the alternative crude oil evacuation systems was reported that the alternative crude oil evacuation systems was implemented to avoid production deferment, losses, and other undesirable consequences as a result of pipeline disruption and outages. This is also contained in a presentation by the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission on stability in the Nigerian energy sector, integrated strategies for infrastructure, transportation, and security obtained in the country. Wow, I think that we've really been getting good news today, Wale.
Well,
we just spoke about cutting costs, and trust me, pipeline vandalization has a way of milking the economy. Either ways, it comes back to affect the nation. So seeing how the Petroleum Regulatory Commission and the federal government are doing everything to ensure that we avoid crude oil wastage in the country, it's laudable. I mean, we've gotten news of crude oil vandalization over and over again. And if these people are not gainfully employed, I mean, we can't say goodbye to all of that because they'll keep going back to the pipeline to destroy it and, steal from it. So if this is a means, I'm saying this as a means to ensure that all of that is cut off. And I'm saying we'll now be transporting crude oil through trucks and barges. Barges are like flat boats that can be easily transported across borders, across places.
Yeah. So
saying this is laudable, but I'm wondering, why do we have to use trucks? It's beautiful. It's an innovative idea in a way. But isn't the pipeline safer? I'm looking at trucks and boats to transport this. Because whatever we want to do, we want to ensure that the environment is very safe. We want to ensure that there's no air pollution. We want to ensure that the environment is safe and sane for the inhabitants of the country. But then saying this, I'm very sure they are the experts and they know better. I just hope that this is good. This would work. And it will, in a way, cut cost of production of crude oil in the country. That is all that matters to me. I mean, however we want to transport crude oil, at the end of the day, if the consequences are good, then let's bear it. Yes,
China, so I think there's a lot to unwrap in this conversation because we've talked about the issue of petroleum vandalization in the country, and it's as old as the foundation of crude oil itself in Nigeria. And for over the years, a lot of security architecture has been put in place to ensure that these pipelines are being monitored and people that are cutting it and vandalizing and tapping from it to refine, local refining is being prevented, but that has not been able to solve the problem. As at now in Nigeria, we cannot definitively say this is the amount of petroleum or crude oil that we produce in a day. Other countries, other advanced countries have that data, but Nigeria, we cannot even account for the petroleum that we import, that we use in the country. Because the issue of petrol subsidy that was removed was also because a lot of petroleum products that are being imported into the country have been re-exported through black markets to other countries, and we're subsidizing not only Nigerian petroleum, but other West African countries that are surrounding us. So if we have that issue and then we have this as a solution to transfer through truck, to transfer through barges, is that sustainable? Is that a cost saving? Is that even innovative? Is it cost saving? Because having to transport in a pipeline, I think it's more cost saving than having to transport per trucks
and barges.
Per trucks. And also the environmental implication of that. If we could have accidents, we could have things spill into the water, because these barges are going to be passed through the waterways that we have in this country. And we have a lot of fishermen, a lot of other agricultural industry that has to be protected. So we need to put all those factors in place before we can make sure that this is the right direction that we want to go for. Is this even sustainable?
Is it? That's
a question we should ask ourselves.
Well, I'm very sure that the Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission can answer that. I mean, they should know that if it's not sustainable, if it's not going to be good, they should know better, because we are all going to face it in this country. So they should know better.
Exactly. And that's where we draw the curtain today. It's been an exciting conversation. If you're still at home, enjoy your Easter holiday and do well to join us tomorrow as we go through selected lines to give you all the news that are making the waves on our national dailies. I am Adewale Olashopo, and on behalf of all our team, from the crew till the presenters, we say bye for now.